You found the podcast, Go Beyond the Brief, where we take a deep dive into the societal currents shaping our lives. Together, we'll explore the often unseen forces at play. We'll examine the research, dissect the data, and most importantly, if you're seeking to understand what's shaping our society, this is the
Ever
place.
stop and think, what happens when a really fundamental right, something millions have built their actual lives around, suddenly looks, well, vulnerable?
That's exactly what we're getting into today. We're looking at the potential for the Supreme Court to revisit Obergefell v. Hodges.
Right, the big 2015 decision, the one that established a fundamental right to same-sex marriage across the country.
Exactly. And our mission here is to really unpack the insights from, the legal analysis, the societal studies.
To help you understand what's actually at stake here. Because Obergefell itself, it passed, 5-4? Super narrow.
Razor thin. And now, especially after the Dobbs decision concerning abortion rights, well, that precedent feels a lot less secure.
Okay, so let's start with Obergefell itself. How did they ground that right initially?
Well, the majority opinion, they based it on the 14th Amendment, specifically the due process and equal protection clauses.
So fairness and equal treatment under the law.
Pretty much. And they really emphasize this idea of dignity for all individuals and their relationships.
Okay, but here's where it gets tricky, right?
Right.
Because the Dobbs decision, it didn't just overturn Roe v. Wade, it set this test.
The deeply rooted in this nation's history and tradition test.
Yeah. And the really crucial point is that Obergefell explicitly rejected using that kind of historical test for fundamental rights.
It did. So Dobbs, in a way, it kind of laid out a potential roadmap for challenging Obergefell. It's a clear legal vulnerability.
And you see echoes of this in the original Obergefell dissents, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. You had Chief Justice Roberts worried about judicial activism, the court-making law.
Right.
And Justice Thomas had this very, very narrow view of liberty, basically just freedom from physical restraint.
And those arguments, that way of thinking, it lines almost perfectly with the method used in Dobbs.
It does. And Justice Thomas has actually explicitly called for the court to reconsider Obergefell. So the link is pretty direct.
So there's the legal opening. But then there's stare decisis, right? The idea of standing by precedent. How does that play in?
Well, that's the tension. Critics might challenge the, let's say, quality of the reasoning in Obergefell, arguing its legal basis wasn't solid enough, according to the Dobbs test.
But the reliance interests, that seems massive.
Immense. You've got millions of same-sex couples who have gotten married, adopted kids, structured their finances, their whole lives based on this decision being law.
Yeah, you can't just unwind that easily. The human impact would be huge.
Exactly. And it's not just theoretical disruption. We actually have data showing Obergefell had a positive effect on LGBTQ plus well-being.
Like what?
Increased happiness, documented reductions in things like mood and anxiety disorders. Overturning it risks reversing those very real gains in people's health and lives.
Wow. And beyond the personal well-being, there were the legal protections tied to marriage, right?
Oh, absolutely. We're talking over 1,000 federal benefits and protections, things like healthcare access, inheritance rights, Social Security benefits, taxes.
1,000. So if Obergefell falls, all that just vanishes for same-sex couples.
It would likely create a chaotic patchwork. Rights would vary wildly from state to state, just massive uncertainty and, frankly, discrimination.
Which must have economic costs too, right?
Definitely. Think about increased demand on public health care, social services, maybe lower tax revenues. You might even see people moving states to find legal protection. It's not just social, it's economic.
It really sounds like it would, as some sources put it, create a second class of citizens.
That's the fear. It draws parallels, unfortunately, to cases like Loving v. Virginia, which struck down bans on interracial marriage. It's about whether the state gets to dictate who counts, whose family counts.
But here's the contrast that's so stark.
Great.
While there's this clear legal vulnerability we've talked about, public support for same-sex marriage is actually really strong now, isn't it?
Overwhelmingly strong. Recent polls put it somewhere between, 68% and 74% support. That's a huge jump even since 2015.
So, if the court were to overturn it now, that would be massively out of step with public opinion. It could seriously damage trust in the court itself.
That's a major factor, yeah. And of course, we have to acknowledge the role of religious objections. That's a key driver for the opposition.
Sure, that's part of the landscape.
But it's also important to remember religious views aren't monolithic on this. There's a lot of diversity there. And, some of the Obergefell dissenters themselves pointed out that courts maybe can't create the kind of nuanced accommodations a legislature might.
Right, the legislative process versus a judicial ruling.
Exactly.
Okay, so wrapping this up then, it seems clear the stability of Obergefell isn't just some abstract legal debate. It's deeply societal.
Absolutely. It touches on equality, individual liberty, how much people rely on established law, and really the court's whole role.
So maybe the thought to leave everyone with is this. You have this right, established less than a decade ago, with huge public support now and immense personal reliance built upon it. If that right could be revisited and maybe overturned, what does that signal about the stability of any rights we might think are settled? What does that mean for all of us moving forward?